All right. Mariah, this is my first time recording in like 6 weeks, so I might be a little rusty,
Is it
but
really? Okay. I guess we haven't, been on a call for a minute.
it's been a minute. But super excited for this episode. It has been a long time in the works. We've got Casey, founder and CEO of Skylab Media, and we are really, really, really excited about the emerging partnership between Skylab and Malomo. But for today, really excited to have Casey on. Like I said, I think I've rescheduled twice. Casey's rescheduled twice. So it's been a long time coming and pumped to finally be here, Casey. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. And may the force be with you.
Oh, yes. You had to give it to us. Yeah, I haven't heard that today. So,
Casey, are you a big Star Wars fan or just because it's May 4th?
It's just May 4th. I actually never watched Star Wars in my life. So,
Okay. I only watched it for the first time, like all of it, all the way through, probably a couple of years ago. So I feel like kind of on that train.
right. Yeah, I feel like it's a shock every time I say that. Everyone's like, what? You never seen it? And I don't know. I just never have. So, sorry for all the fans out there.
Now it's too long of a running joke. I'm sure that you're like, I have to keep it running, That's like a good fun fact.
Yep, for sure.
100%. Before we get into it, Mariah and I actually hung out with a couple of your, I guess they'd be
Mm-hmm.
employees, your teammates, at Shop Talk. We missed you, Casey, but Dan and Rob hopefully had good things to say because we had a
Mhm.
blast.
Yeah, I heard all the good news. I definitely had FOMO, and I know my team, Dan and Rob, are great. Not only with Skylab, but all of our partners, and I'm glad that they had a good time. And I personally, so with my staff, I really do like to treat them a step above. I don't know if you guys heard of JSX, but it's kind of one of those like private jets that you can technically take from Burbank to Vegas. So I
Mm.
wanted to treat them extra special, and I flew them out there, and they had nothing but a blast as well. So.
How do we
Amazing.
get on that list? That's amazing. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, it's actually not that bad of a price. I will be honest. So it's the price itself usually is kind of like flying from LA to New York, typically around 400 500. But I mean, you got to treat your employees good. So I wanted them to get that extra special treatment. So
Do you think if we become like one of your best partners, you might also
who knows? I might. Who knows? Maybe there's like a raffle in the next event that we have together.
Uh, yeah, man, we had a blast in Vegas. They're great guys, and they were hustling for sure. So you got some good ones.
Mhm.
Uh, all right, before we get into the shop talk, tell us one or two things that you're excited about in your personal life.
Well, I'm really excited. Right now, I've been training for a half marathon.
Ooh,
Um,
Mm.
I actually grew up playing sports my entire life, so it's definitely still within me. And I definitely wanted to get in the best shape of my life. So, not that I'm already not, but you know what I mean. I'm always, I'm always training, and so that's something I'm looking forward to. And I'm just looking forward to getting back to the LA weather. It has
yeah,
been a nightmare. The winter, it keeps going and going and going, but apparently it's going to be back in the 80s and 90s next week. So I'm really looking forward to that. Just those two things top of mind. What about you guys?
you're not going to get a whole lot of sympathy from Mariah and I because we live in Indianapolis, so we've had I know that it's been unseasonably wintry in LA and I think all of California, all of the West Coast, but yeah, for us it's always brutal. And it hasn't been super cold this winter, but it's just been gray for so long. So we are
Hmm.
Mhm.
very, very excited for the sunny days ahead. I think we're on the same schedule. Like next week should officially welcome like the summer weather for the foreseeable future. So
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely understand those winters down in Indy. I'm actually from Illinois. I think
yeah,
some of you guys know that, but I definitely can
Oh.
understand the harsh winters. But always a Hoosier fan as well myself.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Love that.
Yeah, Mariah went to Notre Dame, so she's
Oh,
up there by
sick.
Chicago. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it was really, really bad winters. Um, just with the lake effect and how chilly it got. I'm from New Jersey originally, and so winters are pretty similar, Indianapolis and New Jersey, I'd say, but hadn't ever seen winters like South Bend. Very
Yeah.
similar, I've been told, to winters in Chicago. I visited for like
Oh my God.
weekends, but
It's
yeah.
insane. Yeah, like
Oh,
grew up I grew up in Illinois. I went to school in Chicago for my undergrad, and I'll never forget how unprepared I was. It was during those polar vortex, and I
oh my
was in
God.
my
Yeah.
younger 20s, and basically from the moment I stepped outside of my apartment to the bus stop to head to downtown, I guess I didn't like dry my face enough, and my like eyebrows, my eyelashes like started to freeze
Oh yeah.
from 30 seconds of being outside. It's brutal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we had a polar vortex while I was at school as well, and I remember it was after like some practice one day, and all of us with like longer hair, it just froze. Like we had to wait so long for it to defreeze because we were like, it's gonna snap. Like it was crazy. Like head to toe, skin like can't be showing. It was like so
Scary.
wild. Yeah. But those days hopefully are no longer in my future.
Yeah, I definitely don't miss it for sure.
We also have a couple marathon notes. So you're running a half marathon. Is it your first time?
No, so I've done team marathons before. I've done half marathons. I've done half marathons just on my own.
Yeah.
One thing
Yeah.
that I really love doing is just running on PCH in Malibu.
Yeah.
And I'll just, because there's nobody around. So those are like my favorite types of like running exercises. But the last half marathon I did was in Chicago years ago. But that was a long time ago. I can't remember. So
Yeah, it's different. So one, there's the Indy mini marathon is here, which is like a big event where people actually come to the city, from out of town to run because you run around the Motor Speedway where the Indy 500 is, and that's really cool. And I think Mariah's rooting some friends on this weekend. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. I'll be on a bike. I don't feel like running. uh,
Um, but I did a half marathon a couple months ago in Fort Lauderdale, and I did zero training. I had
ooh,
similar to you. I had run like up to 15 miles, but not in like a race setting before. And so I ran a casual 10 miles, which was my first run of 2023, the weekend before. And I was like,
okay,
okay, like no problem. I can run this 13.1. And I finished in like decent time, I thought, but my legs were so messed up for so long after that, like a full week of legit pain in my legs. And
dang.
I will not do, I will run another half marathon, and I'd love to run a marathon. But I will be training next time. That's the lesson learned there.
The real question though that I have is, did you stop at any point during your
I did.
run?
Yeah, I stopped for gel packets like two or three times, and I stopped for to tie my shoe once or twice.
Oh, you gotta just keep going. You gotta
Like,
just keep running and take your shoes off, you know?
Forget them. Leave them behind.
I'm not not qualifying for any Olympics, so I think I think I'll pass on that. But yeah, it was I did it's not like I stopped to walk, but I did stop like for a few seconds here or there.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
But yeah, good luck, man. That's it's fun, right? Like I really enjoy the I've done a couple other races, never a half marathon before like that, but they're
yeah,
fun when it's like in that community setting.
yeah. I absolutely love sports, running. I mean, I grew up doing that and I'm very competitive. I mean, I take that in my personal life
Yeah,
and, with our company too. I'm
right.
extremely competitive. And just a fun fact, not to brag or anything, but my fastest mile is a 3:59. So
Oh
Oh my
my
God.
God.
Brag
What?
away. You deserve
yeah.
it with that. Oh my God.
That
That's
is,
impressive. Oh.
yeah, we had, I think for like high school basketball, you had to be able to run under a 6 minute mile. And I, every time was just like so unbelievably close to not, not doing that. So I can't imagine cutting 2 minutes off of that. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
it's I don't know. I don't know. Like it kind of helps, I think, just because um growing up like year round, I did swim, like I did club. So it's
Yeah.
like a year round thing. And I just think I built up the lungs to be able to run that long. I don't know. It's just I feel like half of it's genetics, to be honest. So
Yeah. Yeah, probably. And then there's like also the competitive aspect that's like, I don't care if I, lose a leg. I'm gonna run this mile in under 4 minutes.
mhm.
Very cool, man. Okay, so let's get into Skylab a bit. We have to ask, the founders that we have on the founding story, but would also love to learn a little bit more about like what led up to, you founding the agency.
Yeah, so fun fact, I actually used to work at Hawk Media, Music, Client Boost,
Mm.
Yeah.
IBG Media Brands.
We
So
just we
my
just posted the episode with Eric from Hawk today, actually.
yeah,
Yesterday, this
er,
week.
This
mhm,
week, yeah. It's Thursday, Noah.
Yeah.
Feels like yesterday, but yeah. On Monday
yeah.
we posted it. Yeah.
E- Eric and Tony are great guys, and I think during that time it was around 2016. So that was kind of when they started to take off, and I got to work closely with Gian and a few others. And I think just overall, my whole background is in marketing and advertising. I've been doing this for over a decade, and I got to have that firsthand experience in different growth stages of marketing agencies and their businesses. And so over time, I started to realize, missed opportunities with agencies, not from a CEO level, but from an employee level, and, growing my career in that regard. And I think I had a very valuable experience that not many founders have when they start a company in that regard. So over time, for me personally, I always look at myself as a leader and I possess those leadership qualities. And so I wanted to take what I learned from these agencies and apply a better way of doing things, not just with client relationships, but also with employees and how we treat our staff. And I think when you combine those two efforts, it's great because you always get to have a better retention, better quality work, and therefore you're likely to have better outcomes with all regards in a structure. And so one of the things that I started right away when starting Skylab back in 2019, which was focusing on differentiators in a sense of how we brand ourselves, our organization structure, how we respond to client feedback and relationships, and also obviously be performance focused, making sure that clients are consistently going above the bar with their KPIs. And so just over time, we continue to grow. And we are here where we are today with Skylab. The company has been around for 4 years. And each year we just continue to get better and better with our efficiencies, our staff, operations, our client relationships. And I pride ourselves in a sense that our customer retention rate is around 90%.
Wow.
And that's without any outside funding. The company itself has bootstrapped this entire time. We're now in the process of getting a round of funding, but I think just to go through 4 years of not having any funding, that's a lot because I mean, for me, I can't believe I didn't wait. I can't believe I didn't start any sooner, to be honest. So,
Yeah. So I think what's really interesting is like you had all this experience with other agencies and thought you also possess leadership qualities. And I think a lot of people would just naturally think like, well, I'll just like become a manager, and a people leader within these much larger orgs where they have access to merchants and have the scale, right, that you would be missing as a bootstrapped startup agency. What do you think like possessed you to be like, nope, I'm gonna do this on my own?
Well, I think, well, a couple of things. I think one thing that I've always looked up to was the leadership at Mute Six, Stephen in particular. I
Yeah.
think that his attitude really inspired me to kind of look at myself and be like, well, if they can do it, why can't I? I mean, there's America is a capitalistic society, um, the land of opportunity. And so, because of that, there's so much opportunity to start your own business. And I just became more and more wanting to start a business.
Yeah.
And I think it's just something for me, comes natural. I've
Sure.
always enjoyed businesses. I've always enjoyed the entrepreneur spirit. And so I felt like it was the right time to start that venture.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think that we're kind of similar in that same vein. Like I think about, well, especially in e-commerce, like I don't know about you, Mariah, but it's like you see these different brands, especially the ones that are like kind of silly, like with one little product offering and they have
Hmm.
500,000 monthly visitors. And it's like, what? Like, why am I not doing something about this right now?
Yeah, it can be very tempting. I feel like I wouldn't consider myself entrepreneurial in spirit, but like more on the creative side. Um, but yeah, I do see that a lot in e-commerce where it kind of feels like there's a pull that might, you know, influence wanting to own a business.
Yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
fun space.
Mhm.
Yeah, and bootstrapping for first 4 years also like I imagine kind of risky and scary. How many employees are you guys at now?
So we're keeping it pretty small. I mean, overall, the staff, we have 6 full-time employees, but we have around 11 contractors. And then we have an outsourced agency for our creative and for our web development as well. So I think, you know, I'll be honest, a lot of companies, they kind of flex on how many employees they have. But if you're smart with your overhead costs, I think it's more important that you have the right players in space that are full time. But that's definitely something that we're forecasting in the next couple of years to grow the company in terms of our headcount. But that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah, man, that's you guys have done so much with the lean and mean team. And I also like not to discount the partners and the contractors and other agencies that you work with, because I think that making sure that all of those different pieces fit cohesively, is a big part of your success as well, that probably can be overlooked by others. Um, but from my perspective, Casey, you guys have blown up over the last, I don't know, 8 months or so. I'm seeing Skylab everywhere. And I'm curious,
Love that.
have you done anything differently? Because I know that like our interactions have also picked up while I'm seeing more and more of Skylab just organically in the space. So curious, like what your thoughts are there. Anything that you guys are doing differently or new approaches you're trying?
Yeah, so that kind of segues into our approach with partnerships. I
Yeah.
think, when we look at marketing, advertising, and how we approach Skylab, I think there's several ways that you can go about it. You can do organic content, paid advertising. You can align yourself with strategic partnerships. And I think that's where we found our niche. Myself and my team, we're pretty people oriented. We love working with others, and a lot of our partners are in the LA area to begin with. And so Dan, who's our head of partnerships and sales, he came up with a brilliant idea of developing exclusive implementation packages with our partners. And so his whole background is from Ragnarok, and
Okay.
that's their whole business model as well. And so we wanted to take that similar approach but make it our own, and by aligning ourselves with other partnerships that are in the DTC space that are all Shopify oriented, it makes sense to work together. And so we developed some very unique product offerings around that business model. And I think it's definitely coming into fruition, all the hard work that we're putting into that program. And we just honestly we put our head down and we really focused on, okay, what's going to drive the needle? What's going to make, how are we going to take it a step further? How is Skylab going to kind of penetrate into the market? As you know, it's not a blue sea anymore, definitely red. And in that regard, we have to stand out in some ways. And if there's a company out there that doesn't know who Skylab is, but we align ourselves with a very familiar partner like Malomo or a Kendo or Attentive or Rebuy or whatever it may be, people
Right.
are going to look at that as validation, social proof. And so, I mean, I can say it all day long, you know, I worked at Hawk Media, I did this, I did that, but what has the company done? What have we done to prove ourselves in this space? And because of that, it's definitely starting to turn around in a sense of, okay, like client relationships definitely are starting to pick up on that fact. So I'm pretty proud of our team.
Yeah. I'm super biased, but I love that approach because it's basically that approach that's the reason that I have a job as a, as a leader of partnerships. Yeah, it's interesting. I heard this quote earlier this week, I think, maybe late last week. I don't know what day it is, but it was actually on like a partnership podcast, and they talked about how like in this day and age, it's so much less about what you know, and it's more about who you know, in the sense of like in the old days, people went and looked for information online, like, oh, I want a reviews platform. Let me go type that in on Google. Like, how many brands do you think are actually going to Google right now and typing in return or like what I say reviews platform? They're going to their networks and saying, we need a reviews platform. Who do you guys recommend? They're going to the people that they trust that have like been there before, like been to the place that they want to be at or where they want to grow to before, and asking them what they use. And I think that
Yeah,
the mindset around like realizing that and then developing strategies to support that that's just the reality of the day and age that we live is pretty much like critical,
mhm.
especially in our space. It's so community driven.
1000%. And I think I can take it a step further and say that, you know, when you're buying a product and you have a friend that has purchased it as well, from a tangible standpoint, you're going to ask questions about, oh, like, where did you get that product? Where is it from? Do you like it, et cetera? And that's the same thing when it comes to agency and partner relationships, because your network is your net worth, and it's super important to align yourself with the right partners that are going to give you credibility and a solid reputation. And I think we've been able to accomplish that over the last 6 to 8 months. In addition to, I think kind of the aha moment for me was, okay, what's something that is missing in the gap between partnerships and agencies? And I think far too often, a lot of agencies, with respect, tend to look at partners as a lead gen driver in terms of what can you do for me and how can I be of service to you, when really it's how can we work together to be the best of both worlds. And I think if you come in at a genuine approach, you're more likely to get a favorable response compared to just, in a way, kind of being greedy. I think every agency, every partner will have this moment in time. There's enough to go around. And if you just stay focused and really make sure that you spend time and you bring value just by even being yourself, that does go a long way. And people do take notice of that. So I definitely agree. I mean, for example, one thing that I really love doing is, you know, our offices are located in West Hollywood, California. We're right across from Soho. And one of my favorite spots is called The Addition. I know you guys have heard of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
We're right next to it. And, you know, one thing that I've always been told is, you know, find a spot that you love going to, introduce yourself to all the staff, the managers, really, you know, put yourself in front of that audience. And then every time you bring a client or you meet up with someone for a potential networking event, bring them there. I mean, when you you demonstrate, your environment, and you treat your staff, your people, close relationships well, it really does magnify the person that you are and the company that you are that much more. So we do that often too. I mean, it's a plug, but I love that place. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, they have a couple. I think I've been to a couple of their other like properties, but I haven't been to the one in WeHo. That's cool. That's good to know. And also like a great tactic that you just laid out that we haven't heard before, but I think
Mhm.
it's powerful, right? Like you walk in and everybody greets you by their first name and is happy to see you. What do you think that person that you brought there for the meeting thinks? Like it's
Exactly.
pretty natural like psychology there, social psychology there. Um but yeah, I love the approach you guys have taken with tech partners and with us. And one of the things that are themes I think that came out of or that I thought of when you were talking, Casey, is if you think about your like if I think about all of our agency relationships as just revenue drivers, I am not doing my job well. And the reason I'm not doing my job well is because revenue shouldn't be at the center of any partnership. That's real goal in all of this is to like better serve our merchants, right? The
Hmm.
merchant should be at the center. If we put the merchant in the center, we start to think about creative ways that we can bring value to the ecosystem outside of just like direct revenue producing things. One of the things that I love about our relationship with Skylab is you guys have brought ideas to us on how we can do co-marketing together, how we can take some stuff off of your plate and vice versa from time to time to help us get more educational content and thought leadership out into the marketplace that can help, the merchants that we're either currently serving or that we'd like to work with over time. And then revenue sort of comes as a result of all of that, but it shouldn't be like the first and only thing that's thought about in the
Hmm.
vendor to agency relationship. And I think that Skylab's a little bit unique in that approach, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts?
I agree. And I think that I've met many merchants, many potential clients. I've met many opportunities. And I mean, I've been to networking events where often brands are approached, um, and they see the writing on the wall. They see that they're trying to, sell them a service to them. And I think when you get a genuine response where you focus on the merchant, it works out in the long run because one, you're trying to make sure that the brand is successful with their KPIs and their growth as a business and what their needs are. But then again, coming together as an agency and a partner to provide solutions that go hand in hand with their strategy is the ultimate win because as an agency, we're helping the partner be stable in their approach with maybe an implementation, showing the value to the client on why you should work with this partner. And then in return, the client ends up getting more value because they're getting growth from a consistent manner. We talk a lot about retention, life cycle efforts, and having the right partner stack is crucial for any brand today to drive success long term. And when you take it in that approach, they're more likely to be receptive to potentially trying a new product or a plugin. But if you do it the other way around and you just say, hey, like we recommend this, or when you're talking to a new prospect and you just go up to them and you tell them like, hey, like, have you done XYZ? They're gonna just see that as like a poor sales tactic. So when you combine both efforts, I think kind of going on a tangent here, but you get the idea.
No, I don't think it was a tangent at all. I agree with all of it. And I think that is something that makes Skylab a little bit unique in a positive way, in my opinion. Outside of that, it's kind of going a step further on the preferred tech stack. I'm curious if you want to share sort of some of the tools that you're working really well with. That's cool, no pressure there. But I'm curious more so like how do you evaluate what technologies, because there's so many in the same category these days, you're gonna end up working with, implementing, recommending to clients.
Hmm. Well, we always let's take it a step back. So when we talk to an open opportunity, or whatever it may be in the sales cycle, we really look at where they're currently at within their business model. And then we ask them what their goals are in terms of this month, next quarter, month, or year over year. And based on that discovery, we then look at our MarTech solutions and identify what solutions at that time would be best. And so it could either come down to the pricing, their in terms of if they have the budget, if they're looking to meet more aggressive goals with their MER or their ROAS, or they're looking to try something out as a beta opportunity and then further implement down the line, because every brand is at different growth stages. So mid-market to enterprise, they might take a little bit longer to cross implement a new partner stack, whereas a mom and pop shop or startup, they're more likely to try something out right away. But it really comes down to aligning with what their business needs are. Because at the end of the day, like, we can recommend 10 merchants or 10 solutions for that merchant. But if they're not hitting sales, or maybe they're restricted with their budget, it wouldn't make sense to recommend all 10. It's more taking a crawl to walk approach. But that's kind of how we identify it with potential clients. I think, we're always going to recommend partners like Malomo, Rebuy, Okendo, Triple L, Northbeam. Those things are kind of crucial to look at your attribution in sales, retain customers from start to finish, make sure you're on brand, have those reviews. But at the end of the day, if you don't have sales coming in, what are those platforms good for? So that's why we always lean in on performance marketing in the D2C space first. And then over time, once we start to see a positive return, we'll slowly recommend implementation packages or MarTech solutions that are a good fit for them.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's an awesome way to think about it. Kind of, again, putting the customer at the center, right? Based on their needs and where they want to go. Yeah, I think there's, some agencies, for better or worse, right? They have a preferred tech stack that they sort of recommend up front to most of their merchants, and that can work too. But a more tailored approach, especially when you're working across different verticals and different, sizes of merchant in terms of capacity on their end, employee count, and different growth targets. I think that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, Skylab itself is a full service ad agency. So it's not just one service. We don't just focus on a niche of like performance marketing. Like, we do it all because we recognize, and the data shows that customers at any size, they don't want to silo all their work. They don't want to have a different agency for every single service. If you're able to get a one-stop solution for any brand, it's better for them, because you're going to have a core pod, you're going to have everybody in the same room working on the same problem at hand or solution at hand. And so it makes sense to offer more than one service at any time, should the budget fit the need of that brand. That's how we always approach it. And I think also too, it's just really figuring out what they value, the customer, the brand itself, like, what do they value in a relationship, whether it's from an agency or a partner, and how it's going to best fit their needs. Honestly, like, personally, if I was starting out brand new agency and I'm trying to get the most revenue possible, of course, I think a lot of people make the mistake of saying, hey, we recommend 10, 20 partners, because they get a rev share. But does that really make sense? You got to really step back and ask yourself, like, are you doing any service to your customers? You always got to think about the customer first before honestly think about yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm sensing a common theme here. That's awesome. So that's great, and great perspective. I am really want to get into like one or two projects that you've worked on recently, Casey, to sort of illustrate what you just talked about. Like, how does that approach a full service and the approach that you take with tech partners translate to a recent project that you've worked on?
Yeah, so I would say our partnership with Bella Doll, which is a premium apparel brand out in Los Angeles. We love working with them. It was 2 years in the making. We've been working with them for quite some time now. And when we first started working out with that brand, they were at a point in time where they're starting to see rising CPAs. The attribution model has changed, and maybe some of the way of doing their performance marketing has been the same month over month, year over year. So they had brought in a new e-commerce manager who really wanted to switch things up in a sense of, okay, how can we drive the needle? How can we make sure that we get more sales, but lower that CPA? So over time, we've been working with them very closely on that. And I'm very proud to say that our performance marketing team on Page Social and Page Search has been able to do that, but also add on to, okay, what are some partner stacks that we would recommend? And so we've been able to slowly integrate partners like Okendo or Yapo or Triple Well, for example, all of these partners that are going to be of benefit to them and their customers and stuff. And so we've actually been working really hard on lowering their CPAs on meta platforms. Believe it or not, we've been very successful in that. And it just comes down to the framework and the structure of how we set up their entire campaigns. Now we're starting to expand on other platforms like Pinterest and a few others that I don't want to reveal yet. But our partnership with them is awesome. I love everybody that works there. Our team does too. And, they treat us well just as much as we treat them well too.
That's awesome. Do you feel like you've figured anything out in Meta or Facebook that's like scalable, just in terms of, I know
Yes.
there's one going on and it's not really my wheelhouse, the acquisition side, but I am interested in it. So like, is there anything that you sort of had a revelation on that you think you could scale to other clients?
In some ways, like you think it would be a lot more complicated than it is. Sometimes just staring right in front of your face. One thing that I've always seen work for any apparel brand, even when I was a media buyer back in the day, were running product feed campaigns specifically for those that are on apparel, just taking their product feed, constantly updating it based on collection or product SKU or seasonality, whatever it may be, and just running data campaigns on that and making sure that the campaigns itself are broad and using certain placements, because there are times where you pull in the product feed and maybe the images don't fit the requirements of Facebook, Instagram stories, whatever it may be. So it's just becoming, because everyone nowadays, they're always saying be broad as possible because of the Facebook pixel and iOS and whatnot, right? In a sense, that is true, but you can still be granular in all of your targeting. You can still have different data sets and target based on that product collection. You can still A/B test, ad copy messaging. You can still do a lot of things that are very intent based and still keep it broad and scale. Obviously, you want to wrap that up and remarket users based on whatever intent it may be and identifying that with the brand and what their needs are as well. That's kind of approach that we always take. And I think doing it incrementally as well and not just, pouring $100,000 in 1 week or 1 month. I think in my opinion, slow and steady wins the race. And that's with anything in life. And going back to running a half marathon, if you just jump out the gate and put all your energy at the very first week, you're going to fatigue. You're going to basically lose out. And it's important to look at brands, your business in terms of longevity. That's how we look at it. So
Yeah, I think definitely another unique perspective there. And I think that's really helpful tactical advice as well. So we just talked a little bit about acquisition, which is a little outside of our comfort zone, Casey, but well within your wheelhouse. Let's shift over to retention. Given we're on Retention Chronicles, we always have to ask this question. what do you feel like retention just means to e-commerce brands? What's your view on it? And what do you feel is an area that brands regularly neglect when it comes to
Hmm.
retention?
So personally, retention for me is keeping your customers for the life of your brand. So what I mean by that is focusing on your lifetime sales. So what does that mean from a business owner? How can you properly forecast your business model? How can you make sure that you're purchasing the right amount of inventory each quarter, making sure that these products are fulfilled and shipped out to your customer, all while making sure that everybody's happy and, to your employees, to your uh, inventory order guys, to the people that are ordering your products, your customers, whatever it may be. It's very, it's a hard balance at the end of the day. So one of the easiest ways to maintain your customer base is looking at the value of that customer. Often, like we just talked about acquisition, so many brands focus on that first purchase, acquiring that customer, but what are they doing to retain that customer? How can we make sure we keep them locked in and ready to purchase time and time again? So I think it's so important to make sure that when you're looking at your LTV, 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 what does that actually mean? And making sure that you're constantly looking at new ways to excite your customer base, whether that's a subscription model, whether that's keeping your order on brand, such as using Maloma and keeping the excitement with that customer from start to finish, making sure that they have an experience. And again, like an agency, brands are constantly trying to stick out and get someone's attention to purchase the product. Once you've done that, what are you doing to keep that customer? And it's really important to know your KPIs, to know the value that you bring to your customers, and to keep them excited. And it's constantly engaging them with new content, new product feeds, just keeping it fresh. I mean, just because you have a product and it does well the first time, people are going to forget you eventually. So it's constantly thinking about, I mean, it's with life in general. So
Yeah,
you just gotta,
yeah.
yeah.
We've had a lot of business or e-commerce lessons that apply directly to life lessons as well. Gotta
Mhm.
love it. Um, but yeah, that's awesome. I think we talk a lot about what isn't so awesome, which is just like how insanely expensive it is to acquire customers. And
Very,
it's no longer like because the days of like first purchase profitability are so far gone. It's like it's not just like you shouldn't acquire net new customers if you don't have a plan to retain them and get them to buy more, um, get them to buy the second or third or fourth time or whatever it costs to make them profitable. It's literally you will go out of business. Like it's
hmm
no longer a nice to have. The reality of the situation is in today's world, like acquisition cannot just fuel all of your growth. You must grow through retention, because if you churn that first customer after their first purchase and you do that repeatedly, you will literally be out of business.
yeah. And think about it this way, when you think like a consumer, think about it this way. You purchase like a hat for the first time, and you love that hat, you love it so much that you want to buy more, but they only have one product. Naturally, you're going to look at the competition and see what they offer.
Mhm.
And then your competition not only has that same exact model or same hat that you have, but they have them in different colors, or they have different products that you can purchase to eventually become a repeating customer. And that's how you develop a loyal fan base, is by offering more than one product. And just, yeah. So
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. I think things like, subscription programs or paid membership programs or loyalty programs also feed into that a lot as well.
mhm.
That pretty much all of those being impossible without more than one product. But you get where I'm going. Like there's always ways to think about maximizing LTV and driving repeat purchases beyond just, more SKUs, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay, so we're coming up at time here. Great lessons learned. Give us, because it's been an awesome journey for you so far, working at some of the biggest agencies, most respected in the space, and then starting your own. Certainly a unique and very cool path. Like, what are one or two things that have helped you get to where you are today, Casey?
Yeah, so personally, I think one of the best life lessons I think would be really important to know is never give up, continue to keep trying. Running a business is very hard. People just look at how much money you make or look at how successful you are from a uh, kind of a holistic overview, but they don't see how hard it is to day in and day out run a business. And you can literally apply that to your personal life as well. I mean, there's a lot of things that people don't talk about that, the world doesn't want to see of you, but it's really important that you stay true to yourself, you keep going, even when it's super hard. And those are people that are successful, that win at the end of the day, because nobody likes a quitter. People want to keep going. They want to work with the best of the best. And part of that is your attitude. I think one of the things that I've always, took with me is, your attitude does make a big difference. And you have to put yourself in an environment where it's conducive of that. So if you're not happy somewhere, you're working at a company that you don't like, whatever it may be, leave. I mean, the world is your oyster. You can do anything you put your mind to it, but just always know that you cannot give up even when things are tough. There are a lot of business leaders. There's a lot of people that are very successful, but they had dark days too. So if you just keep going, keep trucking along, you're going to be just fine. And that's what people see. They respect people personally and professionally for keep going, even when it's not all great. So I always like to say that because I think it's very important to have that attitude.
I love it. I talked to my sister earlier, and something you said in there made me think of a conversation we had. I like how you said, successful people, or the people that you view as successful, right? They've certainly felt the same way that you do right now, or the way that you did when you're going through a tough time. And what I'm realizing, like, as I get older, I think is, like, when you're going through a tough time, there's very little that can make you feel better. Like, you just kind of have to suck it up and know that, like, this is a season of winter, and like there is a summer around the corner. But one thing that does actually help me, at least, is knowing that, like, when that summer rolls around and you get out of that dark season, you'll be better off for, like, having gone through those hard times. Like, you wouldn't be to where you are today, Casey, without going through some of those trials and tribulations, earlier. And you'll go through more, and you'll have more success as a result of getting through that. So, man, I love that lesson. Mariah,
Thank you.
Anything?
No, I think this is wonderful. I agree. I don't think anything else I could add would benefit. I think you both expressed that very eloquently.
Yeah, very cool to hear you say that. Like I said, after a conversation I had very similar with my sister earlier.
Yeah.
So, Casey, man, this was so awesome. Like I said, long time coming, but well worth the wait. Can't wait to get this out to the public. Probably around the time we got some other cool content between us coming out. So exciting.
Oh yeah, that's right.
For our partnership, and exciting time for Skylab in general. So really appreciate you taking time, and we'll certainly be collaborating again very soon.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure just catching up and talking about all things e-commerce related. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. And not only that, but the people out there listening, keep going, and we'll be talking soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Mariah.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you. Bye.